Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the Show Up Fitness podcast, helping you pass your NASM CPT as quickly as possible. Get through it. You do not need a textbook. Unfortunately, you came across the SUF CPT too late, can't get a refund, so you need to pass this. The worst thing you can do, spend months reading a textbook because we are not textbook trainers. We're personal trainers. You need to learn the people skills, the business skills, the technical skills, hands-on learning. 90% of trainers quit within the first year because they don't get those skills. Get through this and level yourself up. Surround yourself with a great team so you can become a successful personal trainer. We offer bi-monthly calls. You get to ask questions. You're going to see with the PowerPoints and everything that's included in the program, you can get through this very quickly. The fastest we've had, less than 3 days. And that is the goal because you need hands-on supervision, asking questions, and surrounding yourself in an environment where you can learn by asking questions. Pass your NASM, get to a hands-on learning seminar, get hired at the best gyms, and you're on your way to become a successful personal trainer. Keep showing up. And so for those that need to pass NASM, we're going to go over a deck of slides right here. We're focusing primarily on the OPT model. I'll fly through these pretty quickly. There's a couple people in the women's group who was asking about a textbook. There's like two sides to everything, right? Some people want to dive into the book. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel when you start going through it, usually around chapters 4 and 5, most people get pretty frustrated. And over the 10 years of helping people pass this, what just really crushes me is I've had so many stories that people will say that I just stopped studying, I quit, I gave up, and then NASM's now calling me saying that I have to renew and pay an extra $200, and they've wasted almost a year plus. And so the textbook is like anything. If you try to learn Spanish by reading a Spanish book, you're going to have a really, really difficult time. You need to be able to immerse yourself into the culture and learn and be able to ask questions. And so this is just your first step into the industry. And the more successful you're going to be doing exactly, as she was mentioning before, going to seminars, going and gaining hands-on experience. We have a partnership with Lifetime. We are the only certification that can proudly say you are guaranteed an interview. If you don't have our certification, then you'll need to gain a couple of years of experience before you can apply at the top gyms like Equinox and Lifetime. But we do go out to their lovely $100 million gyms and give seminars. And we were at Austin this last week, and I think it's just cool, a testament to our product where you'll have people who are training there. They worked at a gym for a couple of years. They say, wow, I learned more in 2 days than my CES, PES, and CPT all together. And again, I understand where you're at. I've taught this stuff for a long time, and it's not bashing NASM. They're an incredible marketing company. They do a great job of getting in front of people, and you need to pass it. So what we tell you is what you need to know to pass it. You don't need the textbook. If you want to get it for whatever reason, that's fine. We will give reference points that we have in the study guides and so forth. But we give you what you need to pass, because at the end of it, what I don't want is for you to spend months on months and years trying to understand this stuff. And then even worse, you were to take it and you fail, a lot of people don't even try again. And I think that's, again, really cool to see where if, in my view, if you don't pass something, I want to know why I didn't pass it and learn and how to pronunciate certain words and so forth. And then when you take a multiple choice test, that's what happens. So the OPT model is a big bulk of the test. This is going to be going over the 5 phases, the 3 parts. Can everyone see this okay? Yep. So when we hear the words periodization is breaking up a training block, and how NASM breaks their block up is into 3 parts. You have your bottom level, which is stabilization, middle part, which is strength, and then you have power. Each phase, it's nice and easily translated because you can look at this and see that, okay, the bottom level is purple, middle one is pink, top one is red. Obviously, you need to start on the foundation and move your way up. So it's how they break it down. You have to stay 1 month in each block before you can progress into another one. And then you'll see on here, phase 3, this is an older one. They call that muscular development. Now it's the same terminology, but we're going to break through the main aspects with the acute variables. So rep sets, intensity, volume, tempo, interval, exercise selection, order, duration, frequency. That's what you really need to know for the OPT model. So what NASM is going to ask you is they're going to say your client is performing 8 reps. Which of the following phases of the OPT model will this be performed in? And you'll need to be able to, they'll give you one, they'll give you phase 3, phase 5, and maybe even a random phase. And so you need to be able to recognize that that 8 is going to be corresponding with the phase 3 of the OPT model. So we have 3 parts of a movement. We have concentric, isometric, and eccentric. Unless we are doing a plyometric, we will not have an isometric phase. Does anyone know what the phase for the plyometric would be called instead of isometric? So you have eccentric, blank, and then concentric. It's definitely a test question that you could see that's referred to as the amortization phase. It's a quick transition between eccentric to concentric. So if I'm doing a jump properly, I'm going to load my arms behind the body. That very quick transition between eccentric to concentric is called amortization, whereas within the muscle actions, we have concentric, which is the shortening. Think of doing a bicep curl. You are overcoming gravity. When the weight comes down, the weight is going towards the earth. It's going with gravity. That's the easier portion. That is called eccentric. Any type of holding, such as a prone iso ab or a wall sit, that's going to be an isometric contraction. And together, those will add up to be what's called your time under tension. So for the phases of the OPT model, the stabilization, the foundation, we're going to have 12 to 20 reps, 6 to 12 for phase 3, 1 to 5 for maximal strength, and power will be 1 to 10. And these all have a corresponding intensity, which we should know. So when we look at the sets, 3 to 6 for power, 46 for maximal strength, 3 to 5 for hypertrophy, and 1 to 3 for endurance. They're not going to give you 4 similar answers. They're not going to say how many sets are in stabilization, 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's going to be very obvious. It's going to be 2, 4, 8, and 12. So just being able to flashcard these is helpful. I'm really big into just flashcarding and memorizing because it's just going to make your time when you take the test a lot easier. So with that 1 to 10 in the power range, that corresponds with 30 to 45% of your 1 rep max or 10% body weight. For the endurance, 12 to 20 reps is 50 to 70%. Hypertrophy is 6 to 12 or 75 to 85. And max strength is 1 to 5 reps or 85 to 100%. What that means is if I put a load on that's 85%, that means I can only do it 5 times. That's volitional fatigue. That means I cannot do more than that. So if you are truly lifting a weight 5 times, you will be getting optimal fast twitch muscle fiber recruitment. Those are the big, powerful ones. We see the type 2 muscles when we do things explosively, but also really, really heavy. We want to start out with light weights in the beginning because that's going to strengthen our connective tissue. And the main ones we need to be concerned about will be our tendons and ligaments because they're avascular. So yeah, for the endurance aspect and stabilization, we do a certain tempo, which we'll see on this next one, because it's going to help stress that connective tissue, which is avascular, and it's going to help prevent injuries in the future. So a 4-2-1-1 tempo, what that would mean is if I'm doing a goblet squat, or NASM loves to do a stupid stability ball squat curl press. If you're going to be doing that, you're going to come 4 seconds down, you pause for 2, you come up for 1, you pause for 1. My only piece of advice is to never ever count that out for your clients because they will consider you annoying and a rep counter. When I do this, I just control it. If you're doing a push-up, control it on the way down. If you're doing a squat, control it on the way down. I don't want to see rapid acceleration when we should be controlled. And what I mean by that is if I were to have someone sit down really, really slow, I'm standing up right now. If I come down slow and I just fall, that lack of eccentric control could potentially produce an injury in the future. So we want to choose an appropriate load where you can control it down for the eccentric aspect and then have a nice transition from isometric into concentric. Again, concentric is when the muscle shortens. That's when we produce the maximal amount of force. Think of a baseball player. You throw the ball, that's producing maximal concentric acceleration. Rest intervals, you can see a question about ATP, which I'll show you here in a second. But generally speaking, endurance 0 to 90 seconds for phase 1, hypertrophy 0 to 60 seconds for phase 3. That's why it's important to keep up to date with the current literature because that is extremely outdated. If you want to maximize hypertrophy, you'd want to be resting closer to 2 or 3 minutes. But again, put your NASM hat on and choose the answers that they want for the exam. They're going to ask you, your client wants to get stronger. How many reps would you recommend for them? Sorry, how long would you recommend the rest periods to be? 0 to 90 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 4 minutes plus. And if we want strength, it's going to be 3 to 5 minutes. That's going to optimize muscle ATP replenishment. Good. Another flashcard to have on here, 3 minutes for approximately 100% recovery. 60 seconds will get you about 90%, 40 seconds, 75. They're only going to ask you 20 to 30 seconds and or 3 minutes. ATP is what is the cell currency. And when we do work, we break down that ATP molecule and produce ADP. They don't get into the physiology or bioenergetics of this. I'm just giving you a little cherry on top, but you produce this molecule called ADP, adenosine diphosphate, which can reproduce more ATP because of creatine phosphate. And we're all familiar with creatine phosphate and the benefits of creatine monohydrate, the single most studied supplement in the world that everyone should pretty much be taking because it allows for more work to be done. So looking at, I'm going to skip over some of those, just looking at frequency and so forth, not that important. So when you see things that are unstable, that's always going to be stabilization. And what I mean by that is a stability ball, a BOSU ball. Anytime you see 12 plus reps, anytime you see a 4-2-1-1 tempo, it's always going to be in phase 1. When you get into the strength portion, so phases 2, 3, and 4, think of it as most of the bro lifts, as I call them. When we go to the gym, if we're doing straight sets, like most of us are probably doing, you're going to be doing a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, a military press. Those are all going to be strength-focused exercises. And then anything that's going to be explosive and or dynamic, if we take a ball and throw it as hard as we can, or some type of lateral change of base of support with explosiveness, that's going to be phase 5. Let's take a look at some of the exercise selections here. Again, I was saying single leg step up curl, balance, those will all be words that will cue stabilization. If you're doing something that you're stable, and that's going to be phases 2, 3, and 4. When you have a throw or some type of pass, that's always going to be power. Here are some examples of the progressions with the floor to a BOSU ball being the most unstable versus upper body, 2-arm alternating, single arm trunk rotation. Again, also just good flashcards to have on these because they'll definitely ask you what would be the most optimal regression for a client who began a half foam roll exercise. So knowing it would be a sport beam or floor versus a progression. Think of regression, you're regressing to make it easier. Progression, you're making it more challenging. Breaking down the phases, macro, big picture, that's going to be typically based off of a Olympic period. So every 4 years, where every month would be a mesocycle. Mes in Spanish is month, whereas a micro machine is very, very small. That's going to be a weekly plan. NASM based everything off of linear periodization. So what that means is the whole week you stay the same. 3 sets of 15 that whole week. The next week you would then progress. So if you're doing 3 sets of 15, next week you would increase the weight and do 3 sets of 12. That's referred to as linear periodization. The more optimal form of programming and periodization would be referred to as DUP, daily undulating periodization. And that's how we program within the CCA at Show Up. So you would take an exercise, optimized force production, say you're doing 3 by 12. Well, then as you go down in the programming, you would make it lighter. So each day you are undulating the load that you are putting on the system. Just for stabilization, anytime you see these words, always choose stabilization. Correcting muscular imbalances, improving stabilization, improving patterns, and so forth, always going to be stabilization. Proprioceptive enriched environment, always choose stabilization. It's funny because when people just 100% buy into the guide or the calls and what we're saying, we've had people pass the test in less than 20 minutes because the exam is very, very simple in the sense it's saying things like your client is performing a stability bell squat curl press in this proprioceptive enriched environment, which phase the OPT model. A lot of people can interpret that as, oh my God, there's so much information, but it's just, you just take that word proprioceptive enriched environment and you choose stabilization, move on to the next one. And it's the same with the overactive and underactive muscles. Someone shot me a message on YouTube about they're confused about the overactive and underactive. And you just need to memorize the chart that we have. So if something is overactive, the antagonist is going to typically be underactive. So let's take a look at the shoulder joint. The anterior deltoid is going to be overactive. The posterior deltoid will be underactive. The pectoralis major is going to be overactive. The mid-back, the rhomboids, major and minor, as well as the middle and lower trapezius will be underactive. This muscle right here is called your sternocleidomastoid. That is an overactive muscle. The deep muscles, the deep cervical flexors would be underactive. When we look at the knee on the medial side, the vastus medialis or the teardrop is going to be underactive, or on the lateral side, that's going to be overactive. At the hip, we have the psoas major, iliacus, iliopsoas used interchangeably. Those flexors are overactive, and then the opposite ones, which would be your glutes, will be underactive. I always like to make a joke. If we don't foam roll and stretch, you're going to die. You have to do that for a 20 to 40 second duration. And then you're going to strengthen the antagonist with that 4-2-1-1 tempo. So your client's performing the overhead squat assessment. Don't do it, but that's what you have to do for the exam. And your lats are overactive, foam roll stretch, 20 to 40 seconds. And then you're going to strengthen the mid-back with a 4-2-1-1 tempo, such as a single leg scaption, which is going to be strengthening those upward rotators and the mid-back for that compensation. Your client's performing the overhead squat assessment, and you notice that their heels come off the ground. Which muscles will be overactive? The gastroc and the soleus, foam roll and stretch, 20 to 40 seconds. And then you're going to do some ant tib walks to strengthen the anterior tibialis, because those are always underactive. We have a list. We just memorize the top 5, overactive, underactive. They're not going to get fancy and throwing curveballs at you. It's pretty simple if you can just recognize the compensation, the overactive muscle, and what you would do for that. And really, the main ones for the OPT model, stabilization has the most aspects to it. After that, phase 2, super easy. So this is what you need to memorize. This work right here, 12 to 20, 1 to 3 sets, 4-2-1-1 tempo, 50 to 70%, 0 to 90 seconds. That's all you need to memorize, and just know the exercises such as prone iso-ab, which is a plank, doing a stability plyo, so you're holding for 3 to 5 seconds. That's always going to be stabilization. So we move into strength. The next one's going to be 2 in phase 2, super easy. It's just a superset, stable into unstable. That's all you need to know. Bench press into a stability ball push-up, a military press into single leg scaption, back squat into a step-up curl press, a pull-up into a TRX row. It's all they're going to ask. That you don't need to know anything else about that. For phase 3, we need to know 6 to 12 reps for hypertrophy, 3 to 5 sets, 2-0-2-0 tempo, and then that 75 to 85% intensity with 0 to 60 seconds of rest. Phase 4 is going to get the optimization of motor unit recruitment. And that sounds fancy, but it's just basically saying that the load is heavy enough to get full firing rate from your type 2 and type 1 muscle fibers. Type 2 are larger, type 1 are smaller, more muscular endurance for type 1. So with strength, you're going to be 1 to 5 reps, 4 to 6 sets, a tempo of XXXX, 85% of intensity, 3 to 5 minutes of rest. And then the last one with power, this is what's called PAP training, post-activation potentiation. You do something that is heavy into something that's explosive, or vice versa. So you do a heavy back squat into a jump, or a jump into a heavy back squat. You'd still use those acute variables for strength, 1 to 5 reps, and then 1 to 10 reps for the power aspect. Power is defined as force times velocity. So you're looking at optimization of power for type 2 recruitment would be 30 to 45%, or that 10% of body weight. You may have a little bit of a rest, but they're not going to get nitty gritty on that one. It's just know that it's a superset with power, where phase 2 is a superset with stability. That's all you need to know in those differences. So I think with the OPT model, we can make it a lot more complex than it is. But if you just literally memorize these acute variables, and again, if you don't have the book, that's fine. You could just probably even type into chat. There's numerous charts that are out there. I'm always a little cautious of like apps like Quizlet, and also taking the NASM test. And this is just my opinion. You got to think of this as like, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, gym owner, teacher of trainers, author of a book. And it's like, if you're in college and you're taking a class like poli-sci, and you're like, okay, I just got to pass this class. I'm the teacher's aide. I'm going to tell you exactly how to pass it. That's all you care. And you're coming to me and saying, I just need to pass this, Chris. That's my goal. If you go to the professor, if you go to NASM, if you go to their website, if you go to other YouTubes, they're going to try to teach you the entire thing. As a trainer, we're not textbook trainers. We need to learn the practical side, the technical side. You need to build that confidence to be able to assess people, but most importantly, turn this into a business. And that business part is asking for 100, 150. Let's show up here. We charge 200 to 350 per session. Having the confidence to take a client through an assessment, help them feel better, deliver a great product, and sit them down and get them to sign up with you. So we're really big into getting RDs on your team, physical therapists on your team. I'm excited for everyone because this is the first step of your journey, and your journey is going to be super successful, lucrative if you choose to make it that way. But most importantly, you'll be able to help a ton of people. So get through it. We have tons of free podcasts. I've done podcasts with hundreds of people from Lifetime, Equinox, ones that we will classify as successful. And so if you need to get a job at a specific gym, we can help you with your resume, the application process, the interviews. And I just did one recently with a manager at Lifetime in Canada. We were up there about 2 months ago. And he said the one thing that he looks for on a resume is diversification. So if you got your NASM, great, that's cool. Get another certification to put on there, because you could come across a manager who's biased towards one way. And so that one biasee may not get you into that next interview. So having a diversified resume, doing something like animal flow, doing weekend workshops, learning about FMS, doing our soft tissue certification that we offer, our CPT, which is for life. It just showcases that you are really interested in continually learning. A lot of trainers are just going to pack up their resume with a bundle of, whether if it's ISSA, you got your CPT, the corrective exercise, nutrition. Showing diversity means that you're open-minded to critical thought and to learning about all the different camps that are out there. Are there certain areas or frustrations that we're currently experiencing with our process of passing this test?